Hello everybody, and welcome back to the PC test server. And I am joined by Fallen. So, yeah, we're gonna do, just talk about the new game update that's coming out. Now, game updates, whereas being like DLCs and things, it's more bug fixes and, just slight updates and things like that. And if it's a seasonal event, that's usually the biggest thing that you're gonna see. But this particular game update has a lot of meat to it. It also includes a bit of PvP stuff, and it also includes the sorcery and nature updates. So that's very cool. That is very, very cool. Most of this, I'm just going to read off stuff to you guys, because really there's not a whole lot for me to show you guys that I would completely understand, at least with the sorcery and nature stuff. I've never been a healer, so I've never used the powers. I don't really know how to do them, but I do want to let you guys know what's going on with those, and what the new things you can look forward to or be unhappy about, I guess. I don't know, when I got the gadgets update, that was pretty cool. But the main things that I kind of wanted to go over, amongst the bug fixes and things like that, they did some updates on all the other most all the other powers. So you can read those in the link below. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can go look at the actual notes for this game update. So that ought to be nice for you guys. There's some interesting things though within the update that I do want to talk about. First off, one of the coolest things that I read in there is that in your base you have the generator, and the generator is attached to the mainframe. You can only access the generator through the mainframe. Well, now they've updated it, so now if you don't want to do that, or you want to roleplay like I do, you can put your fuel and stuff and fuel that up through the generator itself rather than going through the mainframe. You can still go through the mainframe if you would prefer, if it's quicker for you, which it probably is, but you can also go through the generator downstairs in your base. So that's something kind of interesting. PvP wise, one of the main things that I saw in here is that your mainframe trinkets, such as your sidekicks, your accomplice, your backup, or your henchmen, and your supply drops and your orbital strikes, can't be used in PvP death matches anymore, PvP deathmatch arenas anymore. So, sorry everyone, I know that was a nice little backup type of thing, but you can't use it anymore. Nextly on there that I was reading was the Paradox Wave and the Nexus Reality raids. Their difficulty has been reduced, so yay! We can actually do the raids without being either like pro player or having a great group together, like the perfect group together, or being overpowered. So that's a kind of nice one there. Mentioned some things about missions and things like that. So if you get a mission and it only has one reward, you don't have to select the reward. This mostly is in the 1 to 30 stuff. You'll sometimes get a mission where you'll have a reward. When you have to go through the menu, you have to select the reward, and then you can complete the mission to get your reward. You no longer have to do that. Also in the UI, you can, in the options menu, if you go to options, settings, and then UI, you can hide the mission tracker reminders. So if you don't want that, like how it says, talk to Hal Jordan, you can have that taken off the screen. So that's good. That's good. Also, honestly, that's about it. There's a few things. Full credits can be displayed in the credits. You should be able to properly select your characters in the select and see them update on the PS4, because we have the PS4 stuff now. You can have the chat tabs properly save. Just some minor things to the menus and things like that. But those are the main, like, actual quirky things that I wanted to talk about. So now, let's get on to the meat of this. I'm gonna read off what the notes say for this. That way I can give you guys exactly what's going on with the new stuff. And then we'll kind of go over what the difference is, if there's any, between the previous powers and the new powers, and I'll just let you guys know exactly what those are. The nature side of it, they've changed the tree names. So instead of the shape-shifting tree and the plants tree, you now have the flora and the fauna tree. So in the fauna tree, which would be your shape-shifting tree, you have the plesiosaur form is now called the serpent call. So as far as I can tell, nothing has changed with that ability, it's just its name has changed. Nextly on here is the gorilla form. It just goes through exactly what it is. If the player has purchased their native movement boost ability, they will gain access to acrobatic movements boosts while in this form. And if the player has purchased their native attack abilities, they can be used in this form, except for Dive Bomb, Dust Off, and Dash Attack. Nextly is Rampage, which is Supercharged. The damage and healing has been increased, so that's always a good thing. Carnage. Precision has been increased from the flat amount to a % of your current precision. So previously it was just a flat line boost or whatever for your precision, and now it is dependent on your precision percentage. Your Insectoid form. If the player has purchased their native movement boost ability, they will gain access to flight movement boosts while in this form. The Insectoid form weapon attacks have been reordered to have access to all hand blaster basics. Previously, players did not have access to proper lunge and a point blank area of effect for hold ranged. And then I'll go over the combos and stuff for these movement abilities and these forms, I should say. And it also says if the player has purchased their native attack abilities, they can be used in this form, except Dash Attack. And then there's new melee combos for the Insectoid one. It just says that. The new Insectoid combos is Hold. If you hold, it's leap attack, interrupts, vulnerable, it's vulnerable to block, and interrupts strong range, sustain, or charge up attacks with a swift melee attack. So that's kind of cool. Tap, hold, so if you tap and hold, it does overgrowth. You leap into the air and blast the ground with an explosion of vicious plants, damaging and knocking back all nearby targets. This is now a point-blank area of effect, so right on target you have to be. Nextly is the Primal Wolf form. If the player has purchased their native movement boost ability, they will gain access to super speed movement boosts while in this form. Primal Wolf form weapon attacks have been redesigned to allow this form to have proper ranged attacks. And we'll go over the combos, of course. If the player has purchased their native movement attack abilities, they can be used in this form, except Dive Bomb or Dust Off. The Primal Wolf melee combos, if you taps, it's Wolf Claw, which is just a basic melee attack. If you hold Wolf Rush, it interrupts vulnerable, but it's vulnerable to block. It interrupts, but it's vulnerable to block. And then leap quickly at an enemy, deflect ranged attacks, juggling them into the air when upper charge. Okay, supercharge at maximum. Sorry, I'm reading off the list here, and that's a little typo there. Juggling them into the air when supercharge is at maximum. Okay. And then hold. Furious back fist. Or ferocious back fist. I'm sorry. Ferocious back fist. Interrupts, vulnerable to block, of course. You lunge at the enemy, deflecting ranged attacks, knocking them down. Tap hold. Feral Stomp interrupts, vulnerable to block, of course. Vicious Stomp, viciously stomp enemies in front of you, knocking them down. And then tap hold. Hop Claw is what it's called. Interrupts but is vulnerable to block. A quick claw attack, stunning, knocking down enemies in front of you. And then tap hold is double slash. Interrupts, it's vulnerable to block. Slash at enemies in front of you with both claws, stunning and juggling them into the air. And then tap. Hold. Primal Uppercut is what it's called. Interrupts, but it is vulnerable to block. Pretty much all these are vulnerable to block. Clobber enemies in front of you with a rising uppercut that juggles them into the air. And then ranged combos for the Primal Wolf form. Is air tap, air slash, basic range. Hold is Primal Burst. It's a block breaker, but it's vulnerable to interrupt. Lob, Primal Energy, blasting enemies into a sphere, knocking them down. And then hold, Lupin Darts. It's a block breaker, but it's vulnerable to interrupt as well. Fling darts in a long-range cone to damage and knock enemies down. So that is the fauna tree. Nextly is the flora tree. In the flora tree, we have Thorn Shield. The ability has its name changed to Thorn Burst. So it used to be called Thorn Shield, now it's Thorn Burst. To resolve some issues. Spread healer damage over time, cannot override DPS damage over time, so they don't overwrite each other. And a spread damage over time that now ticks once a second like the other Poison Spore abilities instead of every 2 seconds. So it'll do it every second rather than the previous 2 seconds, so that's kind of cool. Briar. The animation time is slowed down. This is one of the only ones that's had an animation adjustment. Other than that, damage was balanced a little bit to the new animation time, and the healer damage over time cannot override the DPS over time, so don't need to worry about that. Chaotic Growth is the next one, the Supercharge. It's been reduced from 100% to 50%, so that's really cool. It's a lot cheaper to use that one if you use that one. The damage has been increased. Enemies that can't be controlled or crowd controlled will now be hit for a small amount of damage. So that's also very nice. So that one's gone through a nice little change up. Of course, I've never played a healer role, so I'm just giving you guys the specs. This is the specs. I've never played a healer role. So I'm not the best person to tell you if this is a good change or a bad change. I'm just giving you guys the rundown of the new things. Nextly on there is Bloom. It now causes a small heal over time for the first 2 seconds, before causing a large burst heal. So a little bit of a heal and then boom, lots of heal. So that's cool. They added a point black area pushback on the cast to match the visual effects. So they kind of changed up how the attack works to match the effect for it. So that's kind of nice as well. More just for the visuals than anything. Nextly on there is Harvest. They removed the interrupt vulnerability. They removed the encasement, and they removed the crushing power interaction. So it doesn't encase, it doesn't crush, and it's not interruptible anymore. Or it's not as interruptible anymore. And it's spread healer damage over time, cannot overwrite the DPS over time. So that's good. That's very nice. And second to last is Impaling Thorns. They adjusted this ability to ensure it always lands when it looks like it should. So if it hits, it hits. So that's good. Lastly is the Vine Lash. Same thing, healer damage over time. Doesn't overwrite the DPS over time. So that is the nature power. In the sorcery tree, unlike the nature tree, they did not change the names of the trees. They just changed what the powers do. So, in the summoning tree, we will start off with Wrath. The power interaction for Red Soul Aura will now cause additional damage instead of polymorphing enemies. That's interesting. And it will no longer remove the Red Soul Aura on use. So that's very nice. Nextly is Transmutation. Changed to point blank area of effect, damage, and knockback. So you gotta be close up to use that now. Consumes the Red Soul Aura and detonates enemies for additional damage. In the healing role, enemies detonate will heal nearby allies. Nextly is the Sacrificial Offering. The Red Soul Aura will now protect the user from some damage if active when cast. So that's that. I'm not like I said before, I never played a healer and I never played either of these powers, but I'm just letting you guys know exactly the changes so if you do play these roles. Nextly is Life Element. It's been replaced with Summon Shard of Life. So nothing has changed with it, it's just got a new name. Or a new thing. Then Soulstorm. It removed the lob components from the projectiles, they now fire directly at the target. So rather than being around, it's at them. And they also increase the speed of the projectiles. So they're faster and they go where they need to be. It will no longer remove the Red Soul Aura on use. And it deals additional damage when the Red Soul Aura is active. So that's very, very cool. A lot of these have a lot of interaction with the Red Soul Aura. So if you guys use that, this will help you out. Nextly on this list is the Destiny Tree. We'll start it off with Condemned. They added additional tick of damage on cast, so I'm guessing that means one more tick of damage or multiple? ticks of damage. So either way, more damage, always nice. Animation time has been reduced, and the damage was balanced with the new animation time. So that could be good or bad. Healing from the bad karma power interaction will now work when the enemy is at range. So you can do it at range now. Nextly is Shared Fate. They changed the name to Soul Siphon. And it also grants Red Soul Aura from enemies. And changed the cone area effect with a 4 target max. So I'm not sure if before you guys were able to do a large amount of people, maybe a whole bunch of people, but you can only do 4 now, if that's it. Or maybe you could only do few, or 1. Now you can do 4. Either way, doesn't matter. Vengeance is the next one. The power interaction with bad karma will now cause additional damage instead of polymorphing the targets. It's no longer a channeled ability, does all the damage at once. Added the Gold Soul Aura to the tooltip, which is cool. Changed it so if you get the Golden Soul Aura, it works like other abilities that use it, but it only gives you 10% crit healing chance and no longer gives crit ability attack chance or crit healing magnitude. So that might be an iffy one there for you guys if you did the Golden Soul Aura. Nextly is the Polymorph Supercharged ability. They reduced the Supercharge cost from 50 to 25, so that's always nice to bring the cost down. It now deals damage as well as Polymorph. So very cool, very cool. Nextly is Karmic Backlash. Change the area of effect damage and knockback. It inflicts bad karma depending on your role, of course. And healing from bad karma power interactions will now work when the enemy is at range. So that's cool. Nextly is the Baleful Transmogrification Supercharge. You guys know how to say that word. I don't need to say it for you. Supercharge cost reduced from 100 to 50%. Very nice. Circle of Protection Ring visual effects have been removed, so don't be looking for those effects anymore. And the area of effect explosion visual effects have also been removed, so none of those anymore, guys. The damage was increased though, and it no longer does a knockdown at the end, so that's kind of a bummer. Unless it's a good thing, I don't know. Nextly is Implication of Renewal. Now causes small heal over time for the first 2 seconds before causing a large burst heal. And players below 35% will be healed more quickly. So that's very nice, that's cool. And knocks down nearby enemies. So very nice. And lastly on this list is Weapon of Destiny. The ability was changed to be beneficial instead of utility type, allowing it to be activated while abilities flagged as harmful are still animating. So it still works while those work. So that's good. And healing from the bad karma power interaction will now work when the enemy is at range. So that is the sorcery tree as it is now. So thank you guys for joining me for this look at Game Update 32. I believe it should be coming out sometime this month because they have the holiday update in it so that we can do some holiday stuff, which I will go ahead and do that over on the regular series I didn't want to do it this episode because I really wanted to focus on the sorcery and nature revamps that they had. And I know, looking at the forums and a little bit on Twitter and stuff, that people have been a little bit upset that there weren't a whole lot of graphical upgrades and stuff like fire and ice and things like that. But they were looking more to update the power sets, to make them work better, to give you guys a better advantage, not really to update the look of it. Maybe one day they will. I'm sure they will update that at some point, but I think their main priority was to really try to fix the powers and make them work really well together. So, that's pretty much it, guys. I do want to, before I go, apologize. There's a little bit of weird cutting in this video. It's the best way I could explain things to you guys while at the same time showing you what needed to be done. So I hope that wasn't too much of an issue, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys all next time.